It's Tuesday, it's the 29th of July. You're watching ARIRANG Korea's only global network. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon. The largest by-election in Korea's history is just one day away, and to drum up support, candidates hit the campaign trail early this morning. Our Ji Myung-kil starts us off.
Candidates in Wednesday's by-elections have just one more day to appeal to voters on the campaign trail, and the rival parties are leaving nothing to chance. They'll be out all day shaking hands and rallying up support, particularly in the races in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province, which are neck and neck.
5 candidates are running for seats in Gyeonggi-do province. We're showing the people that we want all our candidates to be elected.
I've been eating and sleeping here in Seoul's Dongjak district and in the city of Suwon. That is why I wasn't able to attend some party meetings.
The opposition candidate has been boosted in Seoul's Dongjak-B district and 2 constituencies in Suwon, Gyeonggi-do province, after unifying under one candidate. The Conservative Party has attacked the move as political collusion, but the main opposition party and the minor opposition, Justice Party, claim the alliances were formed by the candidates on their own accord. For both rival parties, the stakes in the by-election are high. A positive outcome for the Saenuri Party would provide a further boost for newly elected chairman Kim Moo-sung, while a win for the main opposition party would do the same for co-chairs Ji Myung-kil and An Chol-soo, who have led the party since forming it in March. A loss would have the opposite effect for the duo. They handpicked the candidates in many of the race's more important districts, generating criticism inside and out of the party. A total of 15 parliamentary seats are up for grabs in Wednesday's by-election, with the Saenuri Party already holding 147 spots in the 300-seat parliament. The opposition hopes to minimize ruling party gains. Ji Myung-kil, ARIRANG News.
And now on to the latest development in investigations into April's ferry disaster. Things are beginning to pick up a head of steam. The latest we know is that a very close aide to the now deceased owner of the ferry has turned himself in to authorities after weeks on the run. Heejung is the last of those suspected of helping Yu Byung-un evade the authorities to be brought under custody. Prosecutors believe he could hold a key to finding out what Korea's most wanted man was doing in the weeks, days, and even hours before his mysterious death. Our Connie Lee has more.
After 2 months of being on the run, 55-year-old Yang Heejung, described as one of the closest aides to the deceased owner of the sunken Seoul ferry, has turned himself in. Yang appeared at the Incheon District Prosecutor's office this Tuesday morning and now faces charges of helping Yu Byung-un evade authorities. Yang, who also worked as a driver for Yu, was last seen at the end of May on the surveillance camera in Suncheon, southern Korea, the same city where Yu was found dead, and around the same time Yu is believed to have died. Authorities believe Yang holds answers to what Yu Byung-un was doing right before he passed away. Yang's surrender comes one day after his wife and another close aide to Yu Byung-un turned themselves in, and a few days after Yu's eldest son was arrested. Yu's younger son still remains at large. The hunt for the Yu family is all in the name of finding the exact cause of the deadly ferry accident that killed more than 300 people. Even President Park Geun-hye has said the Yu Byung-un family was a root cause of the disaster. However, the real causes of the accident are still unclear. Lawmakers at the National Assembly, because of partisan differences, have not been able to pass a bill aimed at coming up with the real answers of what made the ferry sink on April 16th. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Now, North Korea has been making more threats towards its archenemy, the U.S. recently. Pyongyang says it'll launch a nuclear attack on Washington and U.S. military bases if it ever feels threatened. Well, the U.S. government, however, barely gave it any attention, saying it would be better for North Korea to try a more peaceful tact next time around. Yudian reports.
When asked about North Korea's recent threat to drop a nuclear bomb on the White House, the U.S. State Department fell short from providing a detailed answer.
I had not actually seen that report with everything going on. I think it's fair to say that that kind of inflammatory rhetoric is not a way to move towards a place in the world.
The White House also declined to comment on Pyongyang's threat made during a large rally on Sunday by North Korea's top military official who accused Washington of raising tensions on the peninsula.
Our military will launch nuclear-armed rockets towards the White House and U.S. military bases.
The latest threat comes amid criticism within the U.S. of the Obama administration's approach toward Pyongyang. It centers around strategic patience and holding off on direct talks with the North Korean regime until concrete steps to denuclearize are taken. But North Korea appears to be hunkering down.
By mentioning the possibility of nuclear war, North Korea wants to show it will not be dragged around by the U.S. instead of showing North Korea's nuclear capabilities. This shows it's frustrated that the nuclear issue is not being addressed or resolved.
Former U.S. State Department official Joel Witt also told the Joseonilbo on Monday that leaving North Korea alone over the past 6 years has been a mistake. He said it's time the U.S. open up high-level dialogue channels with Pyongyang. Witt also warned of North Korea's growing military threats, saying it will most likely finish preparations by the end of the year on a rocket more powerful than the Unha-3 rocket that was test-fired 2 years ago. Yurian, ARIRANG News.
Well, it appears more sanctions are headed Russia's way this week as the U.S. and the EU ascertain Moscow is providing weapons to the separatists that shot down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. Discussions for the revved-up sanctions also come up as pro-Russia rebels blocked international experts and police from the crash site for the third day in a row. Leaders are hoping for results by pumping up the pressure on Russia. Song Ji-sun reports.
The leaders of the United States and a handful of European nations have made clear their determination to act against Russia. Following a conference call on Monday, U.S. President Barack Obama, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President François Hollande, British Prime Minister David Cameron, and Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi agreed to place additional, as yet unspecified, sanctions on the Russian economy this week. Western leaders are increasingly certain that Russian President Vladimir Putin has strong links to downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 due to his support for pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. The leaders also call for unrestricted access to the MH17 crash site. Washington says its intel shows Moscow is continuing to transfer heavy weaponry and fighters across the border to aid pro-Russian separatists and has stationed Russian troops near the border in possible preparation for a further incursion into Ukraine. European leaders made clear last week that they were willing to target financial, defense, and energy sectors of Russia's economy, but some European countries remain wary of backing new measures that could restrict trade across entire industries and hurt the European economy. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
When South Korea announced back in March that it had selected Lockheed Martin's F-35 as its next-generation fighter, concerns were raised over the jet's safety and performance. The voices of dissent have only strengthened in the 4 months since. A New York Times editorial published Monday said that the F-35 has experienced several technical problems since development began 14 years ago, most recently an engine failure at an Air Force base in Florida last month. Now, the Daily sided with experts who say it would be sensible for the U.S. to either buy fewer F-35s or halt purchases altogether until operational testing is completed in 2019. South Korea announced in March that it would buy 40 of Lockheed Martin's F-35s in the coming years at an expected cost of nearly $6.8 billion.
When the latest news meets the latest business stories, we give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Business Today with Moon Gon-young. every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
Now, Korea logged a current account surplus for the 28th straight month in June. According to the Bank of Korea today, the total came to slightly over $7.9 billion last month. Now, that pushed the current account balance for the first half of the year to an all-time high of $39.2 billion, which is a 25% increase on year. The nation's current account balance has been in the black since March 2012, the second longest stretch since 38 consecutive months since posted in the late 1980s, and exports of display panels and semiconductors both rose more than 10% in June from a year earlier. But Korea's business sentiment is forecast to hit a 6-month low in August. The Federation of Korean Industry says that Korea's 600 biggest companies by sales are quite disappointed by the sluggish rate of economic recovery and unstable consumer sentiment. The business survey index rebounded after February, but started on a downward trend following the ferry disaster in April. Well, the Federation attributes the fall to the frail economic indices, including the second quarter growth rate, which hit a 7-quarter low, and a 15-month low consumer sentiment index in July. Korea's main stock market soared for the third straight trading day on this Tuesday, hitting yet another high for the year, thanks largely to strong foreign buying. Our Kim Ji-yeon takes a look at what it is about Korean shares that's made foreign investors turn their eyes.
Korea's benchmark Kospi peaked on Tuesday to end at 2,061, its highest closing since August 2011. The rise is mainly due to strong foreign buying. Foreign investors have bought almost $550 million worth of Korean shares over the past week. That's the highest total among 7 emerging markets in Asia, according to surveys by Bloomberg and Seoul-based Daishin Securities. Until now, foreign investors were reluctant to buy Korean shares due to the country's heavy reliance on the Chinese economy and uncertainties over Korea's economic policy direction. However, the issues appear to have been somewhat resolved, as China recorded growth of 7.5% in the second quarter of this year, buoyed by stimulus measures from Beijing. Korea's economic plans, including a $40 billion stimulus measure laid out by the country's new finance minister, Choi Kyung-han, show the government's willingness to be active in revitalizing the economy.
The main difference between the new economic team and the previous one, led by Hyun Oh-seok, is that other government departments, such as the Ministry of Strategy and Finance and the Bank of Korea, are on the same page with Che on what kinds of policies should be made in order to diagnose the Korean economy.
Despite the record-breaking gains, Korean stocks recorded the lowest price gains compared to 6 other emerging markets in Asia. The Kospi has risen less than 2% this year, a stark contrast to India's 23% and Taiwan's near 10% rise. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Well, believe it or not, the monsoon season is pretty much behind us now in Korea, so we get ready for the intense summer heat over the next few weeks. Most summers, an unusually fierce heat wave will last a maximum of 1 week in Korea, but experts warn global warming may make them much longer, and the effects could be disastrous. Kim Min-ji reports.
It's very hot and humid compared to before, and there are a lot of tropical nights.
It has gotten much hotter. I visit Busan regularly, and it's the same down there. I can feel the humidity. Levels are high.
In Korea, heat wave warnings are issued when temperatures exceed 33 degrees Celsius for 2 straight days. Usually a heat wave lasts for 10 days on average in Korea, but experts warn that period could get much longer in the coming years. The Natural Disaster Management Institute says heat waves could last for at least 1 month by 2020, which could potentially lead to the death of thousands of people. Here's a possible scenario. During the first week, the heat will cause droughts, and in the second, the first fatalities will be reported. As the week progresses, the number of people succumbing to the heat will rise, and the prices of agricultural and farming products will surge. Into the fourth week, temperatures could rise above 40 degrees Celsius, threatening the lives of some 10,000 people. Transportation could also be disrupted as tires are liable to explode and railway tracks can bend and buckle. In fact, in 1994, when the heat wave lasted for 30 days, over 3,000 more people died than average, and there were blackouts and a shortage of drinking water. Experts warn the damage could be worse now.
We will see problems in the farming sector due to a lack of water. In the manufacturing sector, power shortages will reduce the number of working days, which will hurt the economy overall.
The institute warns heat waves could linger for up to 50 days in 2050, but by then it could be too late to reverse the effects of global warming. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
And there, of course, is financial cost to global warming as well. If Korean companies continue to pollute the environment at the current levels, they'll be forced to cough up a combined $2.2 billion in penalties by the year 2020. That is the projection from local firm I'm Investment in Securities, which estimated 1 ton of emissions totaling around $100. The government is instituting a carbon emissions trading system in January with hopes of cutting down greenhouse gases to 30% below their current levels by the year 2020. Now, currently, 38 countries, including Switzerland and New Zealand, have adopted similar measures. Now, Korea's conglomerates, known here as chaebol, were instrumental in the development of the Korean economy and will continue to be a source of great economic strength in the future. But weak corporate governance is something that's been pointed out as a huge risk factor for Korea's biggest family-owned businesses. And a recent survey highlights that concern. Dr. Kim Byung-ju joins me live in the studio for a discussion. So, Dr. Kim, there is obviously a not very strong corporate governance when we see trouble at these huge companies upon the absence of their owner heads, right?
Right.
And we have numbers to back it.
Exactly. We have reports today being aired talking about, for instance, SK Group, where the chairman Cha Tae-won has been in prison since, I think, the end of January last year. And these are the numbers that they're talking about. Their main business is, losing money or not making as much of money as before. SK Innovation is the petrochemical company, which is the main corporation for SK Group as a whole. And as you can see here, commentators are saying and reporters are saying that SK Innovation is losing money at this point. And of course, they're pointing out different factors, such as the strength of Korean won and the global reduction of the profits for overall petrochemical industries here. But they're saying altogether, the absence of chairman is being felt in SK Innovation's performance. SK Telecom also, for the second quarter this year, even though it needs to be still announced, they're saying the result will not be as encouraging as a part of the overall downward trend that you're seeing here. They're saying SK Group as a whole need some kind of a bold move in terms of making decisions for M&As in order to boost up SK Telecom's business, but those kind of bold businesses are not coming in the way with the absence of Cha Tae-won. And SK Hynix actually is making a lot of money these days. It's one of their most profitable business, but they're saying for this kind of semiconductor business that's very sensitive to business cycles, they need bold decisions in making a future investment, which is not being made with the absence of Cha Tae-won here. And there are other stories about other groups, such as the CJ Group. We have some numbers prepared for them here, for our viewers here. And this is what we are seeing from the CJ Group. They are saying overall, the investment decisions at the CJ Group, important ones, especially like takeover bids, M&A bids, and certain kind of bold, large size investment decisions, they're not being made with the absence of Lee Jae-hyun, the chairman of CJ Group, nephew of Samsung Lee Gun-hee. Lee Jae-hyun has been in prison since, I think, July last year. And so they're saying these kind of important decisions are not being made, and these are being reflected in these numbers that we are looking at here.
So what is the argument here? I mean, how is it possible that the absence of, just the head of a huge conglomerate with many affiliates even, face these challenges, create these challenges exactly?
Well, the thing is, for instance, SK Group altogether, they are right now relying upon the collective decision-making system. It's a kind of committee of the key executives. The problem is, unless you're the so-called, in Korean expression, owner of these groups, you do not want to take a bold move and make a bold decisions which you will be held accountable later on. If you're just the top executive of these companies. Only the so-called owners can make bold, risk-taking decisions, they're saying. And, it's a question of responsibility, they're saying, accountability altogether. Of course, it sounds like a, issue of, people taking charge and taking responsibilities here. But then again, if you flip the coin, the other side of the story is actually telling us these corporate owners or the owner chairmen actually can take these decisions without actually being responsible for it because they're not going to get fired.
Right.
So they're in the special position of taking this, being able to take this kind of bold, risk-taking decisions, while others cannot. So when they're not there, others, no one will step out and then take a charge and make this kind of decision. So it's kind of like a funny Korean story in a way.
Well, we remember the CEO risk argument that was often talked about when there were many cases of these conglomerates' heads facing, penalties for their own wrongdoings.
Right.
So do we see the table turning?
Well, actually, that's what the reports are noticing here. When these leading chairmen were indicted and then putting into jail, we were all talking about so-called Korea CEO risk. These chairmen and owner chaebol heads actually doing harm to their businesses by harming their global reputation and their brand names and so on, because these are already very global firms where many of the international investors are holding the shares of. But now it looks like they're saying, well, forget about that argument, and we need to make bold decisions, and we need these kind of chairmen back, no matter where they stand in terms of like a legal responsibility here. So very interesting. And the thing is, however, still, these are important issues, right? Accusations for creating slush funds and using this kind of corporate money, which are, legally speaking, the money of the shareholders on their own way, as if it's their own money. So still, the argument is out there, but we are kind of like forgetting these kind of arguments as we read these kind of reports. And actually, some of the local papers, such as Busan Ilbo, is making accusation that these kind of reports are being aired because these chairmen are working to get themselves clemency or pardon in the way by airing this kind of, the reports on growing risks.
Right. And I suppose, spreading the sentiment, public sentiment, and trying to influence it.
Public opinion campaign.
Right.
Just the accusation, however.
Right, of course. And many Koreans seem to believe that the excessive dependence on this top-down kind of command at these conglomerates is something that needs to be changed. So what needs to be done as we, move on forward to a more mature economy?
The thing is, in the minds of strong critics of the Korean tradition and Korean social values here, they're saying, let's think about Seoul disaster here. The Seoul disaster was the result of Korea's tradition of, arguing making the argument that ends justify the means. If you have good results, it doesn't matter how you get there. And so corporate profits are important things. Corporate, performance is important. So no matter whatever the legal liability would be, the chairman who can make decisions should be there and making these kind of decisions. That's the Korean traditional thinking. And a lot of people these days, critics are saying, that's something we have to get over with. Now, with all this experience for the past several months, what Korea needs, we have agreed upon, is principle-based approach, rule-based approach here. So just highlighting the corporate performance and then generating the sense that we need these kind of top people back, regardless of the legal, the connotation or legal meaning to it. They're saying is some kind of old habit that we should set aside.
Right. So, laws and regulation and then being applied to everyone, no matter the status of one in the society.
Exactly.
All right, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, thank you so much for today, and we'll be speaking to you tomorrow as well.
Okay, we'll do.
And that is your business today on this Tuesday. Thank you for watching. Do join us again at 6 p.m. Korea time on Early Edition at 6.